Oh my gosh, it is never dull when it comes to medical stuff. Like, you have to be your own advocate, and you have to make sure that you stay on top of everything, because little things slip through the cracks and big things slip through the cracks all the time. Okay, so Poopy week appointment number 3, endocrinology. So I've already had endocrinology on my subspecialties because we thought maybe I was having like a thyroid problem, and I'd had a sonogram done of my thyroid and like a year ago, almost exactly, and there are nodules in my thyroid. I've also got bilateral nodules in my lungs too. Nothing I have to do about them but watch them and make sure all is fine. So anyways, so found the nodules. I went to endocrinology, and we just wanted to clear that there wasn't any other like thyroid insufficiencies that could be causing all of my crap. This was before everything was diagnosed last year. So I had been messaging with my endocrinology people for about a week because I sleep so poorly, but like in the middle of the night I wake up and I've got night sweats, and I've been having low-grade fevers and no other like infection or anything to point to it. And obviously my food and feed, not to mention liquid intake, has been severely diminished lately. So I get hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar, just because of all of my nutrition problems and GI tract and blah blah blah. But all of a sudden I twigged, I mean, this has been going on forever, but all of a sudden I twigged on the fact that when I wake up like that in the middle of the night and I'm shaky and the whole thing, it's my sugar crashing. So I sent messages to my endocrinologist, you know, see if I could get some type of tester, because I've never done any of that stuff. It was kind of low priority on the totem pole with everything else going on. Excuse me. And so they really wanted to see me and talk about stuff, figure out what the best option would be for me, which is super awesome. My head endocrinologist happened to have an appointment actually the morning before my awful neurology appointment. And then that morning they called me and said that she was sick, and I was like, oh no, like I was so counting on being able to track it. Oh, my insides hurt. Man. So they call me that morning and tell me she's sick and she can't make the appointment, and I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I just didn't want to have to wait another few weeks to be able to track it and whatnot. And they said that they could get me in with her PA, and I'm like, days from now or when? And they were like, no, this afternoon actually, if you can make it after your other appointments. And I was like, absolutely. And I said, you know, but will it help me? Because I'd already had blood work done. She ran CBC, metabolic panel, cortisol, which I had issues trying to get the blood work done because I had to go to my local LabCorp kind of place, and the orders didn't match in their systems, and so I got 3 of the 4 blood tests that I was supposed to have. So I'd had it all done, and so I asked him, I was like, you know, is the PA going to be able to, you know, look at all my stuff and figure out what we need to do and whatever? And they said that my doctor already had all the test results, had already gone over all of them, is going to brief the PA on what's going on, and then we can go from there. And I was like, absolutely. So they scheduled me for an afternoon appointment, which will be after my other 2 appointments. Was the horrible really horrible neurology appointments, and I'll put it in the I up there and in the description box. So fast forward. So I am horribly upset after the neurology appointment. I have been boo-hooing most of that appointment on the way over to this building, inside the building. And inside this building, they have these new kiosks that you can, like, you go in and you check in on the kiosk and you can do like all the things, which is really cool. But for whatever reason, they have these like people, helpers, I guess, that are there to, like, as soon as you walk in the building, like, they're there to help you, like, walk you through the process of like checking in on this kiosk. So I walk in, I look like I've been through hell. I am so upset. I'm sure I'd had nothing to eat. I'm sure I had feed hooked up, but nothing to eat, and I just felt awful. I'm so upset. I'm still trying to tell the amazing boyfriend through the bawling what happened in neurology. And I walk in the building and people start accosting me to help me with this stupid kiosk. And I was like, I'm good. And I start walking past them, because at the end of the main corridor, if you turn to the right, there is like this tiny little cafe, and it has tables you can sit at and whatever. And it was the best place that I could think of that I could sit down and like try to get my shit together before I have to go to the other appointment, because my head is so messed up at this point. And so they're like, oh, let us help you with the kiosk and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm good. And they were like, well, you really need to. And I turned around. I think I probably fried them with my eyeballs. Like, I was literally like, you know, I tried to be nice. I was like, I don't need your help right now. Thank you. And so I finally kept walking down the hallway, got to the cafe and sat down in a corner. And I'm so upset. And, you know, I'm trying not to be loud about it, because last thing I want right now is anybody, well-intentioned or not, coming up and asking me if I'm okay, because I was clearly not okay. So sat there, took a whole lot of deep breaths, blah 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 it all out to the amazing boyfriend, and thankfully my appointment, I had about 20 minutes between the two from the time the other one ended and this one. I needed to get upstairs, and so I blah 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 got it, you know, mostly under control. I went back to the kiosks and got checked in, thankfully with no problem. I have peppermint tea and it's super yummy. But it upsets my tummy as soon as it hits. So I got checked in, go upstairs. Everything upsets my stomach right now. Lordy. So once you check in downstairs, you go upstairs to like the reception area and give them your name, birth date of course, and they get you officially checked in. And then they tell you which waiting area to go to, because there's an A, B, and C on the floor that I go to for endocrine. And there's nobody else on the floor. It's just me. Oh, my poor insides, holy shit. Oh, man. So I sat down and waited maybe 5 minutes or so. Pause. Okay, I think the worst is past now. So I get in the waiting room, waited 4 minutes. It was really fast. And they came and got me, and we did the whole, you know, go through my 1,000 medications and allergy lists and all that. And then I waited for, gosh, like 2 seconds. And so my new PA comes in. I have the flu, by the way, because I needed something else to deal with. So she comes in, and it was so like delightfully surprising. She was super young, late 20s, early 30s maybe. And she was just so sweet, and we just sat there and talked about all the things. And I had looked up continuous glucose monitors to see like what was out there, so I had some kind of an idea, because I had certain things in my mind of what was important to me about the unit that I got, because I really wanted to be able to read it off of my phone as opposed to another reader. I really wanted, I need an alarm function on it, because I mean, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, but what if I don't? Like, it's just, that's scary to me. And so I need an alarm function that will go off, like, and something that's settable, because I know everybody's glucose is different, you know, like how you feel like at certain levels. So I needed something that alarmed. So we go in there and we talked about all the things, and you know, what I'm experiencing when my sugar crashes, you know, that I've had been in the hospital before, you know, and she was asking about how I've been treating it. And normally I do apple juice normally, but and because I can drink it or I can put it directly through my J tube. And we talked about other options, like orange juice, you know, regular fully sugared soda, which doesn't really do a lot for me because it just upsets my stomach so bad. But I mean, the apple juice does too, so it's not like it's crazy different. But I don't do real well with carbonated anything right now either. And then we talked about, she gave me like a little chart, and it showed me like if I'm at this range, like, you know, 50 to 70, you know, this is how much I really need to eat, like carbs and stuff. And we talked about that if I can have carbs and fat together, it will raise me up about the same time period as the other, but it should maintain my sugar a little bit better, like a longer period of time, which I thought was really cool. And so she was like, you know, if you can eat peanut butter on crackers or peanut butter on apple or anything like that, like it's, and she was like, she said dairy is good too, as long as it's got sugar and fat both in it. So if you can do like whole milk, you know, and something else for carbs, you know, to go with it, banana, strawberry, whatever. So she gave me some options. And then she also said, I mean, like regular table sugar, frosting, any of that stuff. I've got an aunt that's type 1 diabetic, and so I've heard stuff, you know, over the years. Man, I moved just a little bit wrong. Oh, man. And then she also said like honey will work, which I thought of, but she said if you're not able, oh man, to like orally get it down, you know, and or I'm having troubles with my J, like, and I don't want to put anything else in there that's gonna hurt, whatnot. She said your gums will actually absorb sugar, which I'd never heard before. And so she was like, so put honey like down here, and she's like, just let it sit there until it slowly, you know, goes away and you swallow it. She's like, it'll absolutely absorb through your gums. So that was super helpful. We talked about the options, the monitor options. And there was like a freestyle, one touch, and a Dexcom. And with my research going through stuff, the Dexcom looked like what I needed to have. And so we start talking about stuff, and she was like, you really need the Dexcom. And I was like, oh, well, that's good, because that was the one that I had determined that I thought was going to be the best for me. And she was like, absolutely. She was like, you don't have to calibrate the new one. So the Dexcom G6 is the one that we were talking about. She said you don't have to calibrate it with finger sticks over and over and over again. She said it does have an app for your phone, so it can port directly to your phone, and up to like 5 users. So I can get it, you know, I can get the amazing boyfriend, if we're together, like he can have it too. So just in case like I hardcore crash, he'll get notifications on his phone which was super handy. I can also tag my endocrine team into it, and they can actually pull reports for it, which is, it's all super, super handy. Gosh, isn't technology great? Except when it's not. And then we also talked about, you know, obviously I'm not a diabetic, and so insurance coverage for this kind of stuff is a little bit squidgy sometimes, and especially because I don't have a lot of low numbers that are like in their system and whatnot, because this isn't something that we've really been checking for and blah, blah, blah. And so they were going to send all the prescriptions to my pharmacy along with prescriptions for a regular glucometer. So between now and when I get the Dexcom, I can just do regular finger sticks and test my sugar at any time. And to try to figure out, you know, within this week what number I'm at when I feel weird, and try to get some kind of an idea like what's normal and what's too low. Okay, so we did all that, and then she gave me all the paperwork, like pamphlet stuff for the Dexcom G6, and it has a rep on there for Dexcom that can like walk you through stuff, and if there's any issues I can call her. Super awesome. So I left, went to my pharmacy later that day, and I could get my regular glucometer and the test strips and all that stuff, Lancets, blah, 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 to go. That was fine, but had nothing but problems with the Dexcom. My insurance didn't want to cover any of it because I'm not a diabetic, totally get it. And so I left all the Dexcom stuff there, and then ended up sending a message to my endocrinologist and say, okay, you know, I've got trouble, my insurance isn't covering under like pharmaceutical benefits, pharmacy benefits, whatnot. And so I said, what else, you know, what do I need to do? And they were like, contact the rep, the Dexcom rep, tell her what's going on, and then she'll help you kind of like with the whole process. Cool. So I called her, and she took a little bit of my information, and she was like, you know, do you have a... Okay, so after I gave her a little bit of information, just like real generic-y stuff, she said that she was going to work with one of the distributors with Dexcom, and then either she would call me back and let me know what's going to happen, or somebody from the distributor would call me back directly. Her name is Ashley. I said, okay. So I think I waited just a day maybe, and then the Ashley chick called me back and told me that they got it all worked out, that they can run the prescriptions through my regular medical benefits as opposed to pharmacy benefits, and then like my normal stuff would apply to it, which was great. And they got me a coupon for like $140 off my part of it, which was great. And so she said that she sent a message over to my endocrinologist because they had to have a new prescription sent directly to them. And so I followed up with my endocrinology people later. They said they still hadn't gotten it. They finally got it the next day, sent the prescription back over. So that happened. They finally got all the prescription stuff and whatnot, I think Tuesday morning of this week. And then, so Tuesday evening-ish, I ended up having to go to the ER. And while I'm in the ER, Ashley calls me to finalize everything. So I'm like hovered in a corner. And I was giving her the rest of the information that she needed to process the order. And she was like, everything's good, everything's squared away. Insurance has already approved it. So this was the last step. And she's like, we'll get it out to you tomorrow, which would have been Wednesday. And then I should have had it delivered Thursday. So ER trip happened, which was 9 hours in the ER. It was really awful. And so when I was talking to Ashley the second time, she knew I was in the ER, and we had talked about it because she was hearing stuff in the background and whatnot. And so she said, oh my gosh, you know, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. If I need anything else, you know, I'll give you a quick shout. And I said that was fine. So the next morning, after a horrible day, or a horrible night in the ER, I get like a message at like 9 the next morning. saying they needed to have, they meaning my insurance, needed to have an A1C on file to approve the Dexcom. And I said, but I'm not a diabetic, you know, so why would I need to have an A1C? And, you know, why in the world? And I said, that can't be right, because I was told yesterday that everything was fine and fabulous and it was gonna ship today. And so they messaged me back again, and they were like, no, unfortunately, you know, we got the message directly from Ashley this morning saying that there was a problem and she's supposed to call you. 2 seconds later, Ashley calls me. And so with the horrible ER trip and how bad I felt for how many weeks now, it was like with the Dexcom coming, at least I was gonna have one thing that I could try to be proactive about instead of reactive with everything else. And I was super busy. And so she gets on the phone and she was like, you could tell that she was like cowed on the other end of the phone. She was like, I'm so sorry, and blah, 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 because my endocrinology thought that I was admitted, and so they were just gonna have somebody from the hospital run the blood test that morning. And then I was like, I wasn't admitted, you know, I convinced them to let me go home because I'm super charming when I want to be. And so I ended up, I told her, I was like, you know, this isn't as like a simple little bitty problem. I said, now they're gonna have to send orders to my lab place. My lab place is a little rough, close to home. They always have trouble with paperwork. They can never pull the orders from the system. It always has to be regularly faxed. Then they can't read them. Then the orders don't match. And they always blow veins. And in the ER the night before, I had already had 2 blown, 1 on each arm. And so I was really less than pleased. And she could tell it on the phone, and she was like, I'm so sorry, you know, I assumed last night when I figured out that you had to have one on file that you would have already had it. And I was like, well, why would you think that? Because I said, we specifically talked about the fact that I'm not a diabetic, and I said, you know, this is for a totally different reason. And I was like, if you would have called me yesterday, they could have had the A1C run, and it would have already been in the system. They could have finished it, and I still would have had it like by Friday. I was so mad. And so she's like, I'm so sorry, you know, I messed up, and I was super frustrated. She could tell it. She was super apologetic, and it's just like one of those things, you know, like one tiny little 30-second phone call, and it could have made my life so much easier. So anyways, they put the orders for the blood test in the system for LabCorp. So I call LabCorp to make sure that they have them. Of course they don't. I have to send my endocrinology people a message back again and ask them to fax it directly to my facility, which they did. And then they changed the message to urgent instead of standard so that they could get everything as fast as possible. So I left work right before they were supposed to close, and I was hoping I timed it well that there weren't going to be a lot of people there, and I was super lucky because there was nobody else there. And so they got me in pretty quick. They couldn't find a vein, of course, and so they ended up having to stick one of my blown veins like right below it. Oh, it was awful. So anyway, so that got in the system and off the bat. So something else that happened that week before is with my appointment, because the Dexcom was being a little squirrely just trying to get it. And one morning I woke up and I felt so weird, and I knew my sugar was bad. It took me a minute to figure out what it was, but I knew my sugar was bad, so I tested it. And so that's what I had. So I had 54 that morning when I got up. And so obviously they were super concerned and whatnot. But a few days prior, because I was having trouble getting the Dexcom all squared away and whatnot, they asked me to come in because I had another appointment 2 days after that original appointment. And they wanted to put a sensor on me for something, so it would record for a week, and then I could just literally peel it off and then mail it to them, and they can download all the results so they can have at least some kind of an idea, you know, like what's going on, and, you know, hopefully have record of lows and whatnot, so if the insurance company has any bitchies, then, you know, it's all good. So they put a sensor on, and they put, I think it was now I don't remember which one it was, Freestyle One Touch. It's this little bitty white circle. Here's a picture of it on. So she put it in. I didn't feel it at all. And so I wore it for a week, and then I peeled it off Thursday of this week, I guess. And I could tell, like, I was having some kind of reaction to the adhesive. But it's one of those things that you figure out, you know, which is better, you know, deal with a little bit of side effects and hopefully have record of, you know, what's going on, or peel it off and not have anything. So I left it on for the full 7 days. So I peeled it off on Thursday, knew I had a problem. And so that was what it left. So I'm 48 hours after I took it off. It's raised and irritated. It's almost like it bruised with a rash. It'll get better. So I mailed all that stuff off to them so they can have that. And then my LabCorp people and my health system and the rep people all worked super, super, super fast. And they got all of the results back for my A1C, which was, you know, a low number, you know, because I tend to be low. And they got it all in the system, got my insurance in there, got it approved. And they shipped it Thursday, and then it was actually delivered yesterday, which is super cool. I haven't taken it apart yet because I figured I would unbox it and I would show you guys what's in it and what I have to do and how I put it on the first time, and so you guys can learn right along with me. So I'll put that in another video and I'll link it and all that good stuff. Oh my gosh, it is never dull when it comes to medical stuff. Like, you have to be your own advocate and you have to make sure that you stay on top of everything, because little things slip through the cracks and big things slip through the cracks all the time. So I think that's it for this one. So my endocrinology people have been super, super awesome. Yeah, so next video we'll unbox the Dexcom and see all the good stuff, and then we'll go from there.